Alright, so today we got this frequent customer here. This '08 Dodge Avenger. Just put an engine in it a few months ago. It's got quite a few miles on it. It's been a pretty decent car, but it seems like I do get it about every couple months or something for something. So today he's got like a grinding or some kind of noise in the passenger side. I took it for a little drive around. And I know it's got it's had sway links that need to be replaced for quite a while now, and but I think this is something a little more serious. We'll go check it out. All right, I don't know how well I can show you this here, but the I don't know if that's picking it up. Got quite a bit of side to side, up and down movement on it, which is going to be the wheel bearing. So we'll take it off and check it out a little bit closer. Alright, so I don't know how well the camera's picking it up, but there's actually, this wheel bearing is actually chunking metal all over the suspension here. Like I said, I don't know if it's picking it up or not, but there's actually metal, little pieces of metal all over the suspension up here. So we'll pull this caliper off and the rotor and all that, and we'll get down to the bearing and kind of show you what it takes to change a bearing on a Dodge Avenger. So these have 14mm bolts to hold the caliper on. Go ahead and run those out. And then we'll pull that caliper out and hang it out of the way. Alright, I already took the top bolt off. It's a 18mm bolt. Holds this caliper bracket on, so you gotta get that off. So we'll go ahead and remove this bottom one. Oops, didn't mean to do that. So now your rotor should pull off. And we get down to this rusty bad boy. So this is the bearing. There's metal all over inside here from the little bearings chunking out. So we'll there's 3 bolts to hold this on. You got to get the axle nut off, obviously. So we'll pull the axle nut loose next and go after these 3 bolts. All right, so we're gonna pull this axle nut off. I'll go get some lube real quick. Alright, so I sprayed that thing down with some PB Blaster and it came off finally. Should have done that before I even tried. I didn't realize it was that rusty. I thought I just had these axles out not that long ago, but I guess I hadn't. Anyway, you got 4 bolts on this bearing that have to come off. This is set up. I got 15mm. You got one here, and 2 on the other side. I won't go through showing you how to take those out. You just get an extension and get past the axle a little bit, and you can take those right out. So that's the next step, and then this thing should technically separate from here. Sometimes they're a pain to get off, especially in these Avengers. I had a newer Avenger had a problem, had a bearing problem, and it was a pain to get these off. So we'll see how this one goes, but you know, the axle's loose now, so take those 4 out and then that should come off. Alright, so you'll pull 4 of these out. They're pretty long. Usually I break them loose and then use the old Milwaukee to run them out the rest of the way. I already got this loose. You can see here, I had to beat the crap out of it. I don't know what it is with these Dodges, these front-wheel drive Dodges, but these things, you can see right here, all that rust behind it. This is the bearing itself, and you can see in there, I don't know if you can hear that, but you can actually see the bearings. Well, this was. There it goes. It fell apart. But there you go. We're missing quite a few ball bearings in there. Looks like about 4. That's where all that metal was, all over the suspension. Just grinding those ball bearings up. But back what I was saying, the rust builds around this so much You know, usually on most of these cars, you pull those bolts loose, these bolts loose, and they'll come right out. You just tap them a couple times. But I don't know, whatever reason, these Dodges, man, you got to put some ass into it for sure. So yeah, that's off. I'm thinking about changing his sway links here. You can see all the movement in them. They make a horrible noise when you're driving around. Been doing that for a while. They're not that expensive, so I might just go ahead and put some sway links on it. But yeah, this is the wheel bearing, and I think it's pretty safe to say that this thing is shot. You can see it's missing bearings in there. There should be bearings all the way around that. We've got gaps here and then gap on there. So it's pretty interesting. Did its job though. Got about 180,000, 90,000 on this car. So hung in there as long as it could. Only thing I'll add is we'll clean this up a little bit inside here and shoot this down with some grease. And I don't know, I think I might take these sway links off and replace them because they've been making noise for a couple of years now and they're really loose. You can hear that. That doesn't sound like that loud of a noise from here, but that thing vibrates throughout the whole car when you drive it. So I think we might take those off and then go get some parts. Alright, so I just cut this sway link out. I normally don't even try to take them out with a wrench or whatever because these, you know, the inside here will just spin on you. So I normally just cut them off. It's quicker and easier in my opinion. Sometimes you can get something behind here and hold it and spin them off or whatever, but I usually don't waste my time with that. So I'm not really going to show taking these on and off. You know, one goes here on the strut and then one goes down here on the sway bar. Right there. Pretty simple. But yeah, these things, if you have like a loud rattle in your car, always check these. These are like one of the most common rattles that you'll get on the front end of the car. And you may look at it, it looks like it's fine. But if these things move at all, like, you know, if they have any movement in it, man, it'll send rattles through your car. You can hear that. They're loud, man. This thing's actually been rattling for a few years, and it's not like the whole front end's ready to fall off from under it, but all it is these things are so loud when they go out. So anyway, that's I'm just gonna go ahead and replace these. This one was about ready to fall off, and then we went and got a new wheel bearing. They will ask you if you have ABS or not, and if you have ABS, you'll have this wire coming off of your wheel bearing. So anyway, this car don't have ABS. There's no wires on this wheel bearing. So I think the price is pretty close to the same. Maybe, I don't know, but so yeah, this is the new one. I'll put a little grease around this, you know, the round surface there. I cleaned this up a little bit. I didn't go too crazy with it. I just cleaned the gunk out and sprayed it down. Chances are this car's not going to need another wheel bearing, at least on this side anyway, because you know, he drives this car a lot and it's already got 190-something thousand on it. I did just put an engine in it a few months ago. I think the engine had like 140,000 on it, but I mean, this car ain't gonna last forever, so I'm not gonna get too crazy with cleaning every single piece of rust out of this. It's clean now, and you know, all you do is just slide this in and put the bolts in. So we'll get started on that. It's pretty simple. All right, so I slid it in. Now, you know, shouldn't have to say this, but if you don't do this kind of stuff a lot, start all your bolts first. Don't just put one in and run it all the way down because it won't be lined up right. So get all four in and start them. You know, some threads before you torque one down. It's always the best on almost anything like this. All right, so I got them all started here. One thing I'll add is the side that's got the wider space between the bolts. Go on the top, and then you really can't put them in wrong, but there is two ways these can go in. There's a shorter space between here and here. That goes on the bottom, and the wider space goes on the top. So I got them all started, and we'll just go ahead and run them down. And these are torqued to the German spec, which is good and tight. Alright, so I got the axle nut on, and what I do is I run that down with the impact and get it to where it's just barely seating, and then I looked up the torque spec on it, and I got two different torque specs. One said 97 foot-pound, one said 118 foot-pound, so I don't know what the deal is there with that, but I'm just going to run it down. I'm going to get a torque wrench and run it down to 110 foot-pounds. Some people say if you over-tighten these, you can ruin the bearing. I don't know if I necessarily agree with that because you're not really preloading it, but anyway, I always use the torque wrench on that just because better safe than sorry. So it's on an Avenger. I got anywhere between 97 and 118, so I'm going to go about 110 on it just to be safe. And usually, you know, if you put a pry bar in here, you can hold it with the lugs and then torque it down. So the next step after that, I'm going to do that, and the next after that would be put the brakes back on. Alright, so I went ahead and put the rotor on, but I also put this new sway link on. It's pretty self-explanatory. You can only really go on one way. And they have Allen nuts here that you can hold to turn this nut to tighten it. The only thing is, when they're new like this, you normally don't have to do that. I actually used a small impact and just ran this one down and then tightened it by hand the rest of the way. Tighten the bottom one down there with the open end because there's not much room to get tools down there. But that's pretty simple, and you know, this thing's tight now, you can't move it, so that's going to cut down a lot of noise in the cabin. So the next step is just to put the caliper bracket, the brake bracket back on there. Alright, I lied. If you watch my other video about brakes, it's always a good idea to clean these up behind here before you put them back on. Kind of been in a hurry here a little bit and didn't do that, so I'm going to go ahead and just clean these up because you can see there's a little bit of rust starting to form. And when I took it off and on, can't really pick it up, but there's a bunch of rust inside here. So we'll knock all that off and clean this up before we put it back on. Obviously we don't have to clean this because it's brand new. But if it was the old bearing, we would clean it up. So we're just going to clean this. I'll clean this up before I put that on. Alright, so I cleaned it up. You can tell it's good as new there. So now we're safe to put this back on. We shouldn't have any vibrations or you know, pulsating pedal or anything like that with that cleaned up. Alright, so the next step is just to put the caliper back on and put the wheel on. And then we'll go to the other side and change that sway link and put this thing back on the road. So you know, you take these slides out for the calipers. I'll go ahead and clean these up with the wire wheel real quick and put some new lube on them. That way, you know, the caliper can glide freely. I just put brakes on this not that long ago, so the brakes are in real good shape. So anyway, we'll clean these back up and put some new lube on them and put that caliper back on. So this is what I was talking about here. You can get an impact on here. It's just going to spin. It just spins. Now, there's an Allen wrench in here. You can hold it and then loosen it with that. I normally don't do. I usually just cut it off. It's easier that way. But if you want to do it the right way, you can put an Allen here. It's like rush hour traffic here today. Got landscapers. Trucks running up and down the street. It's crazy. Anyway, this is the second day in a row we've had landscapers cutting grass. It's almost November. We got guys cutting grass out here. So yeah, you put an Allen wrench in here, and then you can either hold this with the ridge and then impact it. Well, we'll try that just for fun. See if it works this time. So you can see here, it's just turning. It's just turning. So. Anyway, we'll just cut it off, be done with it. This is why I don't like, it's just easier just to start out cutting it off. It only takes a few minutes, and that thing will be history on there. Alright, one thing I will add, once you cut this off, this will still, your nut will still be in there. There's still a little bit of it holding it on. So you'll have to go up behind here some more and cut it. But it only takes a few minutes at the most. And now we'll cut this bottom one off next. It's basically the same. Get the wire cutter or the wheel cutter in there and hack it off. So one thing I'll add about this link on the bottom, I usually cut it off close to the head of the link, and then you can usually get, because you know, if you cut it off, it's not going to come out still because you got this ridge here. So it still won't come out without getting this nut off. So it's the same with the top. But on the top, I usually just grind this off with a wheel real quick. On the bottom, I usually leave a little bit, so I can grab a hold of it with the vice grips and just turn it off. Usually these aren't too bad to get off. If you get any kind of grip on them, they'll turn off. So anyway, that's a quick way of doing it, in my opinion. I mean, you can do it with the Allen wrench. I don't do it. Usually I just cut them off. So anyway, that's, then put them on. It's pretty much self-explanatory. You got this end that goes down to the sway bar again. This one that goes to strut. We just torque those down. So that's pretty much it. This car will be done. This side didn't need a wheel bearing or anything. It's always, when you're done, you should have a pile of parts like that. It's always kind of satisfying when you pull it apart and you see the bearings. You can hear the bearings. But when you see the bearings missing, that means you got your money's worth out of this bearing. It gave it all it could give, and I've actually seen it where all the bearings are gone and they're almost ready to fall out. He still could have probably pushed this a little farther if he really wanted to, if he wanted to live life on the danger zone. But yeah, it's always satisfying when you see the carnage like that. So that's pretty much it on a 09 Dodge Avenger wheel bearing. The only thing I will add, if you do this yourself, if you don't have the axle socket and an impact, that's going to be a real pain to get off. Other than that, your basic hand tools and, you know, a little bit of time in your driveway, you can get it off. But if you don't have the right socket and impact, that will be a pain. So I think that wraps it up. We'll put this wheel back on and get this hoopty back on the road.